The text message arrived while I was standing in line at Vancouver International Airport Customs, juggling my carry-on and passport like some amateur traveler. 3 words that would change everything. That was fun. My name is Elliot Price, and I'm about to tell you how my wife abandoned me in a foreign country as a prank, and how I made sure she regretted every second of it. Sir, next in line, please. The customs officer's voice cut through my confusion as I stared at my phone. Cassandra's message was followed by a string of laughing emojis and a photo of her, Dylan, Janelle, and Victor raising champagne glasses in what looked like our hotel room back in Seattle. Wait, our hotel room? Back in Seattle, where I was supposed to be. Problem with your documents? The officer, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, noticed my bewildered expression. No, just, my wife seems to have left without me. The words tasted bitter. Cass and I had been in Vancouver for a long weekend with her friends, Dylan Kerr, some tech entrepreneur she'd been spending way too much time with lately, his buddy Victor, and Janelle, Cass's influencer best friend who documented every breath she took for Instagram. The officer stamped my passport with practiced efficiency. Happens more than you'd think. Safe travels. If only she knew. I made it to the gate just as they were announcing final boarding for Seattle. That's when I discovered the second part of Cass's hilarious joke. My return ticket had been canceled. Not delayed, not changed, canceled. I'm sorry, Mr. Price, the gate agent said, her fingers dancing across her keyboard. Your ticket was canceled this morning at 6:47 a.m. You'll need to purchase a new one. 6:47. Right around the time Cass had kissed me goodbye and said she was going down to the hotel restaurant for coffee. Right around the time she'd suggested I take my time packing, because we have hours before the flight. My phone buzzed again. Another message from my loving wife. Don't be mad. It's just a prank. You're so cute when you're confused. We'll pick you up when you get back. Cute. When I'm confused. In a foreign country. With no return ticket. I was standing there, probably looking as lost as I felt, when someone tapped my shoulder. Excuse me, you're the guy from the group that was here earlier, right? A young woman in an airport uniform was looking at me with a mixture of sympathy and curiosity. Her name tag read, Sarah. Unfortunately, yes. I am really sorry about what happened. Your friends, well, they were pretty loud about their prank while they were rebooking their flights. Some of the other staff were talking about it. She lowered her voice. They even live-streamed part of it on Instagram. You going through security, looking for them at the gate. The humiliation hit me like a physical blow. Not only had they abandoned me, they'd turned it into entertainment, for strangers, for the internet. How many people saw it? Sarah pulled out her phone and showed me Janelle's Instagram story. There I was, looking frantically around the departure gate, calling Cass's name. The caption read, "When you leave your husband at the airport, as a prank, he's so lost. #marriage goals, #prank war, #sorry not sorry." 43,000 views. In 4 hours. I can help you get on the next flight, Sarah said gently. There's one in 2 hours. It'll cost about $400. $400 to get home to a wife who thought humiliating me was hilarious. $400 to face the woman who'd just broadcast my confusion to tens of thousands of strangers. You know what? I said, surprising myself with how calm I sounded. I think I'll take my time. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Take your time. Yeah. If my wife wants to play games, maybe it's time she learned what happens when the game changes. I spent the next 3 hours in a Vancouver airport coffee shop, laptop open, making some interesting discoveries about joint bank accounts, shared credit cards, and the beautiful thing about being the primary account holder on most of our services. See, Cass had always been happy to let me handle the boring stuff, bills, reservations, accounts. She focused on her PR career and her social media presence, while I managed our finances and travel arrangements. She'd joked that I was like her personal assistant, just with better benefits. Funny how that arrangement suddenly worked in my favor. First, I called our hotel in Seattle, the luxury suite Cass and her friends were probably partying in right now. Hi, this is Elliot Price. I need to cancel the reservation for the penthouse suite. Yes, I know they're currently checked in. Yes, I'm sure. I'm the primary card holder. Next, the rental car Dylan had been driving around the city like he owned it. Another quick call, another cancellation. Then I got creative. Cass had left her laptop open that morning. She always did, too trusting for her own good. I'd noticed she was still logged into everything. email, social media, even her eBay account. And thanks to the magic of cloud syncing, I could access everything from my phone. Within an hour, several of Cass's designer handbags, her precious collection of vintage jewelry, and that ridiculously expensive espresso machine she'd insisted we needed were listed on eBay with buy-it-now prices that would make any bargain hunter weep with joy. My phone started ringing. Cass, of course. Eli? Eli, where are you? They kicked us out of the hotel. They said you canceled the reservation. I did. I took a sip of my coffee, watching planes taxi outside the window. Seemed like the responsible thing to do, since you left me in another country. It was a prank. A joke. You know, like when you short-sheeted my bed when we were dating? Cass, short-sheeting a bed and abandoning your husband at an international airport are not the same thing. Don't be so dramatic. You're fine, aren't you? You'll be home in a few hours. Actually, I'm thinking of staying a few days, see the sights, maybe take some Instagram photos of my own. There was a pause. What do you mean? I mean, if you can turn our marriage into social media content, maybe I can too. I bet people would love to hear about a wife who abandons her husband for internet likes. Eli, you're scaring me. Good, you should be scared. You humiliated me in front of strangers, Cass. You turned me into a joke. Did you really think I'd just come home and pretend it never happened? The hotel wants us to pay for another room. It's $800. Sounds expensive. Good thing you have your own credit cards. I paused. Oh wait, you don't. Those are all joint accounts, with me as the primary. The silence stretched between us like a canyon. Eli, please, this isn't funny anymore. You're right, it never was funny, that's the problem. I hung up and immediately put my phone on airplane mode. Time for phase 2. Sarah found me 2 hours later, still in the coffee shop, surrounded by empty cups and looking probably too pleased with myself. How's it going? She asked, sliding into the seat across from me. Better than expected. Turns out revenge is more satisfying when you plan it properly. She laughed. What did you do? I showed her my laptop screen. Cass's eBay listings, all of which had already sold. Turns out people really want authentic designer handbags at 70% off retail. Oh my God, you didn't. I did. And the best part? She gave me access to all her accounts years ago for emergencies. Technically, I'm not doing anything illegal. Sarah was grinning now. You're evil. I like it. I'm just getting started. I flew back to Seattle the next morning, having spent a pleasant evening exploring Vancouver and posting my own Instagram stories. Scenic shots of the harbor, great restaurants, cultural sites. Each post captioned with things like, sometimes the best part of a trip is the unexpected detour. And funny how much you can see when you're not following someone else's schedule. The passive aggression was intentional, and judging by the comments and DMs I was getting, people were starting to piece together what had happened. Cass's friends had been busy too. Dylan had posted a story about their crazy night trying to find another hotel, complete with complaints about communication breakdowns and relationship drama. Janelle had pivoted to posts about toxic masculinity and men who can't take a joke. But the tide was turning, especially after someone in the comments of Janelle's post linked to my Vancouver photos and pointed out that maybe leaving your spouse in a foreign country wasn't actually that funny. I took a cab home from Seattle Tacoma International, using the time to make a few more calls. Our house was in my name, a pre-marriage purchase that we'd never bothered to change. The locks, however, were about to be upgraded. Cass was waiting on the front porch when I arrived, looking like she'd slept in her clothes, which, given that I'd canceled their hotel reservation, she probably had. Eli, thank God you're home. This has gotten completely out of hand. I paid the cab driver and grabbed my suitcase. Has it? Seems pretty controlled to me. You sold my handbags, my grandmother's jewelry. That espresso machine cost $3,000. And now it's bringing joy to someone who actually appreciates it. I walked past her to the front door. Oh, by the way, I changed the locks. Her face went white. You what? Changed the locks. You abandoned me, remember? I wasn't sure if you were planning to come back. This is my house too. Actually, it's not. It's my house. You live here. There's a difference. I unlocked the new deadbolt, installed yesterday by a very understanding locksmith who'd heard the whole story and thrown in a security chain for free. You can't lock me out of my own home. I'm not locking you out. I'm just making sure I control who has access. I stepped inside and turned back to her. You want to come in? Ask nicely. The look on her face was worth every dollar I'd spent on new hardware. This is insane, Eli. It was a prank. A stupid prank that went too far, okay? I'm sorry. Are you? Are you really sorry, Cass? Or are you just sorry that it backfired? She was crying now, which might have moved me if I hadn't spent the last 24 hours watching her Instagram stories. She'd been laughing about it as recently as this morning. I'm sorry. I'm really, really sorry. It was Dylan's idea, and Janelle said it would be funny, and I don't know what I was thinking. You were thinking it would be hilarious to humiliate your husband for social media content. You were thinking I'd be so grateful to get home that I'd just laugh it off. Yes, no, I mean, she wiped her eyes, smearing her makeup. I thought you'd think it was funny eventually. Well, you were half right. I do think it's funny, just not the part you expected. I started to close the door. Eli, wait, where am I supposed to sleep? I don't know, Cass. Where did you sleep last night? In Dylan's car, in a parking lot. Sounds uncomfortable. Maybe next time you'll think twice before leaving your husband stranded in another country. I closed the door and turned the new deadbolt. Through the window, I watched her stand there for a few minutes, probably waiting for me to change my mind. I didn't. Instead, I made myself a sandwich and settled in to watch the show unfold online. Dylan Kerr lived in a glass-walled condo downtown. The kind of place that screamed, I have more money than sense. He drove a Tesla Model S that he'd wrapped in matte black because, according to his Instagram, stealth mode is the only mode. I'd learned a lot about Dylan in the past 48 hours. Tech entrepreneur, which seemed to mean he'd sold one app for decent money and now spent his time consulting and posting LinkedIn articles about disruption and paradigm shifts. He was also, based on the group chat screenshots Sarah had helped me recover, the mastermind behind the airport prank. Sarah had become an unexpected ally in all this. Turns out she had her own reasons for disliking entitled tourists who treated airport staff like servants. When I'd mentioned Dylan's condescending behavior during their departure, she'd been more than happy to help me access some interesting information, like the fact that Dylan had filmed my confusion at the airport and sent it to several group chats, not just Janelle's Instagram, like the fact that he'd been texting with Cass for months before our Vancouver trip, like the fact that their friendship involved a lot of late-night conversations and inside jokes that didn't include me. So when I showed up at Dylan's building at 2 a.m. with a small bag of construction sand and a basic understanding of Tesla charging port specifications, I felt pretty justified in my actions. The beauty of sand is that it's everywhere and completely innocent. Just tiny pieces of rock that can somehow cause thousands of dollars in damage when introduced to sensitive electronic components. Dylan's precious stealth mode Tesla was parked in his assigned spot in the underground garage, plugged into its charging station like a sleeping dragon. It took about 30 seconds to pour sand into the charging port. Another minute to sprinkle some around the door handles and air intake. I even left a little pile on his windshield, held down by a note that read, "Thanks for the Vancouver memories. Hope you enjoyed the show." The car alarm started going off at exactly 3 a.m., thanks to a motion sensor I'd taped under the rear bumper, a little device I'd borrowed from a construction site security system. It would trigger every hour, on the hour, for the next 6 hours. I was 3 blocks away when the first alarm went off, walking back to my truck and feeling better than I had in months. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. Phase 1 complete. Phase 1 complete, I replied. Time for Phase 2. Phase 2 was Janelle. Janelle Martinez was what people politely called an influencer, which meant she took pictures of herself for a living and somehow made enough money to afford a lifestyle that would make most people weep. She had 47,000 Instagram followers, who hung on her every word about fashion, travel, and living your best life. She also had a tendency to overshare, which was about to become a serious problem. See, when you build your brand around authenticity and relatability, having your cruelty exposed to your entire audience tends to damage that carefully crafted image. And thanks to Sarah's help, I had access to something better than Janelle's public posts. I had her private group chat with Cass and Dylan, the one where they'd planned the whole airport prank in detail. Screenshots are forever, and context is everything. I spent Tuesday morning creating a simple website. Nothing fancy, just a clean layout with a timeline of events. The airport abandonment, the canceled tickets, the live-streamed humiliation, and then, piece by piece, the private conversations that showed it wasn't a spontaneous prank, but a calculated plan to embarrass me for entertainment. Dylan. It'll be hilarious. He's so serious all the time. Janelle. OMG, yes. I can get so much content out of this. Cass, he'll be fine. He's good at figuring things out. Dylan, plus we get the hotel suite to ourselves for an extra night. Janelle, I'm definitely live streaming his reaction. And my personal favorite, Cass, he's been so boring lately. Maybe this will remind him to be more fun. I titled the website The Real Story and included a simple message. My wife and her friends thought it would be funny to abandon me at an airport in another country and live stream my confusion for social media content. Here's what they said about it in private. Then I did something that felt almost too easy. I submitted the link to a few popular social media accounts that specialized in exposing influencer drama, the kind of accounts that Janelle's followers definitely followed. By Wednesday morning, Airport Gate was trending on Twitter. The angry pounding on my door started at 7 a.m. Thursday. I was expecting it, so I'd made sure to set up my phone to record before answering. Eli, open this door right now. Cass's voice was shrill with rage. I opened the door to find not just my wife, but Dylan and Janelle as well. Dylan looked like he hadn't slept, probably because his car alarm had been going off every hour for the past 3 days. Janelle was trying to hide behind oversized sunglasses, but I could see she'd been crying. We need to talk, Cass said, pushing past me into the house. Actually, you need to be invited in, I replied calmly. This is my house, remember? Stop with the games, Eli. This has gone too far. Dylan stepped forward, trying to look intimidating. You need to take down that website. Now. What website? I asked innocently. You know exactly what website. Janelle's voice cracked. I've lost 12,000 followers. 3 sponsorship deals were canceled. My agent won't return my calls. That's terrible, I said. Have you considered that maybe your followers don't appreciate influencers who think cruelty is content? It was a prank. Dylan's face was red. And what you did to my car, that's vandalism. What did I do to your car? Don't play dumb. The sand. The alarm. I have no idea what you're talking about. Did you file a police report? The look on his face told me everything I needed to know. He couldn't file a police report without admitting he'd been harassing me first, and explaining the airport prank to cops would make him look like exactly what he was, a petty, cruel man-child. Look, Cass said, trying to regain control. We're all sorry about Vancouver. It was stupid, and it went too far. But this vendetta you're on, it needs to stop. Vendetta. I laughed. Cass, I haven't done anything except tell the truth. You abandoned me in a foreign country for social media content. That's not my opinion, that's what happened. You're destroying our lives. I'm not destroying anything. I'm just not protecting you from the consequences of your actions anymore. That's when Dylan made his mistake. He grabbed my arm, trying to force me to look at him. You listen to me, you pathetic. He never finished the sentence because I twisted away from his grip, and he stumbled backward into Janelle, who shrieked and fell into my coffee table. Get out, I said quietly. All of you. Now. You can't throw us out. Cass was screaming now. We're not done talking. Yes, we are. This is my house, and I'm telling you to leave. I live here. No, Cass. You lived here. Past tense. When you abandoned me in Vancouver, you made a choice. When you turned our marriage into entertainment, you made another choice. When you came here with your friends to intimidate me, you made a third choice. I walked to the door and held it open. I'll be filing for divorce on Monday. My lawyer will be in touch about dividing assets, what's left of them anyway. The silence that followed was broken only by Janelle's sniffling. You can't be serious, Cass whispered. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. Dylan started to say something, but I cut him off. Dylan, if you ever touch me again, or come to my house again, I'll file assault charges. I have everything recorded, including you grabbing me just now. I held up my phone, which had been recording the entire conversation. Janelle, I'd suggest you focus on rebuilding your brand, instead of helping your friends harass people. Maybe try being authentic for once. They left, finally, but not before Dylan kicked my mailbox, and Cass promised this wasn't over. I locked the door behind them and sat down to call my lawyer. It was time for Phase 3. Mike Patterson had been my friend since college, which was convenient since he'd also become one of the best divorce attorneys in Seattle. When I called him Thursday afternoon, he listened to the whole story without interrupting, which I appreciated. So let me get this straight, he said when I finished. Your wife abandoned you in Canada as a prank, live-streamed your humiliation, and now she's mad because you're not pretending it was funny? That's the short version, yeah. And you want to file for divorce. I want to file for divorce. and I want to make sure she doesn't get to rewrite history. This wasn't a harmless prank that I'm overreacting to. This was calculated cruelty. Do you have evidence of the planning? I sent him the group chat screenshots Sarah had helped me recover. There was a long pause while he read them. Jesus, Eli, they really planned this whole thing, right down to the live stream. Okay, here's what we're going to do. Washington is a no-fault divorce state, so we can't use adultery or cruelty as grounds. But we can absolutely use this for asset division and to counter any claims she might make. What kind of claims? Well, if she tries to claim you were abusive or controlling, having evidence that she was planning to humiliate you publicly kind of undermines that narrative. That gave me pause. You think she'd claim I was abusive? Eli, you just locked her out of the house and sold her belongings. I'm not saying it wasn't justified, but a good lawyer could spin that as controlling behavior. So what do? Document everything. Keep recording conversations. And maybe dial back the revenge a little. I know it feels good, but we don't want to give her ammunition. I promised Mike the first D be careful, but I wasn't done yet, not even close. Friday morning, I got a call from Sarah. You need to see this, she said. Janelle just posted something. I pulled up Instagram to find Janelle's latest post, a long, emotional video about toxic masculinity and men who can't handle strong women. She was crying, talking about how a dangerous man was stalking and harassing her and her friends because his wife had played a harmless prank. The comments were split. Half her remaining followers were offering support and demanding she call the police. The other half were calling her out for trying to play victim after abandoning someone at an airport. But it was the last part of her video that made my blood boil. I'm scared for my safety, she said, looking directly into the camera. This man has been vandalizing property, making threats, and trying to destroy our lives because his fragile ego can't handle a joke. I'm sharing this because I want people to know that this is what happens when toxic men don't get their way. She was trying to flip the script, turn herself and Cass into victims of my abuse. I called Mike immediately. Did you see Janelle's post? I saw it. We need to move fast. Can you come in this afternoon? I'll be there in an hour. Mike's office was downtown, in one of those glass towers that made you feel important just by walking into the lobby. He had the group chat screenshots printed out and spread across his conference table like evidence in a murder trial. Here's what we're going to do, he said. We're going to get ahead of this. If they want to make public accusations, we'll respond with public facts. Meaning we're going to hold a press conference. I stared at him. A press conference? For a divorce? Not for a divorce. For defamation. Janelle just accused you of stalking, harassment, and making threats. That's serious stuff, Eli. If we don't respond, people will assume it's true. What would I even say? The truth. The whole truth. With evidence. Mike pulled out his laptop and showed me a draft press release he'd been working on. Local man responds to false accusations after wife's airport abandonment prank goes viral. It laid out the entire timeline, the planned abandonment, the live-streamed humiliation, the group chat evidence, and now the false accusations of stalking and threats. We'll hold it Monday morning. Give the weekend news cycle something to chew on. This feels like overkill. Eli, your wife and her friends turned your marriage into a social media spectacle. They made this public, not you. Now they're trying to make you the villain in their story. We're just making sure people know the real story. Or here's what wrong? I thought about it. Part of me wanted to just walk away, file for divorce quietly, and move on with my life. But another part of me, the part that had been humiliated in front of thousands of strangers, wanted everyone to know exactly what kind of people I'd been dealing with. Okay, I said. Let's do it. Good. And Eli? This weekend, I want you to stay home. Don't contact any of them. Don't respond to social media. Don't do anything that could be construed as harassment. We need you to look like the reasonable one. I am the reasonable one. I know, but now we need to prove it. The press conference was held in Mike's conference room Monday morning at 10 a.m. I'd expected maybe a couple of local reporters, but the room was packed. Apparently, Hash Airport Gate had gotten bigger over the weekend. Thank you all for coming, Mike began. My client, Elliot Price, is here today to respond to false accusations made against him on social media and to set the record straight about what actually happened in Vancouver last week. I read from a prepared statement, keeping my voice steady and factual. No emotion, no anger, Just the timeline of events, supported by evidence. The airport abandonment. The canceled return ticket. The live-streamed humiliation. The group chat messages showing it was planned in advance. The false accusations of stalking and harassment. When I finished, Mike opened the floor for questions. Mr. Price, your wife says this was just a harmless prank that you're overreacting to. What's your response? I'd ask anyone watching this to consider how they'd feel if their spouse abandoned them in a foreign country and live-streamed their confusion for entertainment. Then ask yourself if that sounds harmless. What about the accusations that you've been stalking and harassing Miss Martinez and Mr. Montreux? Care? I haven't contacted either of them directly since this began. I haven't threatened anyone. I haven't committed any crimes. What I have done is refuse to pretend that what happened to me was acceptable. You did change the locks on your house and sell your wife's belongings. The house is in my name. The belongings were sold through her own eBay account, which she had given me access to years ago for emergencies. Everything I did was legal. Some people are saying you're being vindictive. I looked directly into the camera for this answer. When someone hurts you deliberately and publicly, and then tries to make you the villain for not laughing along, that's not vindictive to respond. That's self-respect. Oh no. The press conference lasted 30 minutes. By noon, it was trending on Twitter. By evening, it had been picked up by national news outlets. The narrative was shifting. Tuesday morning, I got a call from Cass. Eli, please, can we talk? Just the two of us? Talk to my lawyer. I'm not talking to your lawyer. I'm talking to my husband. I'm not your husband anymore, Cass. I filed the papers yesterday. There was a long silence. I never meant for it to go this far. Yes, you did. You meant for it to go exactly as far as it went. You just didn't mean for there to be consequences. I was wrong, okay? I was wrong, and I'm sorry, and I want to fix this. You can't fix this. We can go to counseling. We can work through this. People make mistakes, Eli. Mistakes are accidental. You planned this for days. You discussed it in detail. You live-streamed it. That's not a mistake, that's a choice. So that's it? 15 years of marriage and you're just throwing it away? I'm not throwing it away, Cass. You already did that when you decided I was content for your friend's entertainment. I hung up and blocked her number. Wednesday, Janelle posted a public apology video. She was crying again, but this time it seemed genuine. I want to apologize to Elliot Price and to everyone who was hurt by my actions last week. What we did in Vancouver was cruel and wrong, and I should never have participated in it. I should never have live-streamed someone's pain for content, and I should never have made false accusations when he refused to pretend it was okay. The video had 3 million views in the first day. Dylan never apologized. Instead, he deleted all his social media accounts and, according to Sarah's sources, moved back to California. Thursday, I got a call from a producer at a major morning show asking if I'd be interested in an interview. Thanks, but no, I told her. I've said everything I need to say. Are you sure? This story has really resonated with people. There's a lot of interest in your perspective. I'm sure. I never wanted to be famous for this. What do you want? I thought about it for a moment. I want to move on with my life. 6 months later, I was sitting in my lawyer's office, signing the final divorce papers. Cass had agreed to an uncontested divorce with a simple asset split. She got half the value of the house and her car. I kept the house and everything else. How do you feel? Mike asked as I signed the last document. Free, I said, and meant it. The whole experience had changed me in ways I was still figuring out. I'd learned that I was capable of standing up for myself in ways I never had before. I'd also learned that some people will never understand why their actions hurt others, and that's not my problem to solve. Sarah and I had stayed in touch throughout the divorce proceedings. What had started as an alliance had become a genuine friendship, and lately, something more. Want to celebrate? She asked when I called her from the lawyer's office. What did you have in mind? Dinner somewhere nice. My treat. You don't have to do that. I want to. You've been through hell, and you handled it with more class than most people would have. We met at a small Italian restaurant downtown. The kind of place where they know your name and the wine list is longer than the menu. So what's next? Sarah asked over dessert. I don't know. I feel like I've been so focused on getting through this that I haven't thought about what comes after. Maybe that's good. Maybe you need some time to just be yourself without having to react to someone else's drama. She was right. For the first time in years, I could make decisions based on what I wanted, not what would keep the peace or avoid conflict. I've been thinking about traveling, I said. Real traveling, not just weekend trips to places other people picked. Where would you go? Everywhere. Europe, Asia, South America. All the places Cass said were too complicated or too expensive. That sounds amazing. Want to come with me? She smiled. Are you asking me on a very elaborate date? I'm asking you on the most elaborate date in history. Then yes, absolutely yes. 3 weeks later, we were on a plane to Barcelona. I posted one photo on Instagram, the two of us at the airport, smiling, with a simple caption, "New adventures with better company." It got 12 likes, and I couldn't have been happier about it. The last I heard, Janelle was working at a marketing firm in Portland, having given up influencing after losing most of her followers. Dylan was apparently doing well in California, though he never rebuilt his social media presence. Cass moved in with her sister and started therapy. She sent me one final text a few months after the divorce was finalized. I understand now why you couldn't forgive me. I hope you're happy. I was. Not because I'd gotten revenge, though that had felt satisfying at the time. Not because I'd won some imaginary contest, though the vindication had been important. I was happy because I'd finally learned the difference between being nice and being respected. I'd learned that sometimes the people who claim to love you are the ones most willing to hurt you for their own entertainment. And I'd learned that walking away from toxicity isn't giving up, it's growing up. Standing in that Barcelona airport with Sarah, looking at a departure board full of possibilities, I realized that Cass had actually done me a favor. By showing me exactly who she was, she'd freed me to become exactly who I was meant to be. Someone who wouldn't accept being treated as a joke ever again. Someone who knew his own worth. Someone who was finally, truly free.